Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. First of all, we want to thank you for being here and for reporting on our legislative platform. We have a lot we're going to do for Kentucky's families. And let me start by saying that the foundation of this press conference began back in November when we were all at our legislative retreat. And we chose and made it clear to our constituents that we wanted a platform that exemplifies the values of helping Kentuckians meet their full potential. Every person living well. And we believe these proposals check those boxes. Now, these are not all the proposals we're doing because you'd be here all day. But we wanted to highlight the ones that go directly to the heart of what our Kentucky families mean to us. We're calling our platform Kentucky Forward, a vision for our families. These bills move us closer to a Kentucky that works for all, to a Kentucky where every child is loved, to a Kentucky where families are thriving, to a Kentucky where everyone can be proud to say, I'm a Kentuckian. So these are my people. They're doing all the work. And I'm going to turn it over to a mighty, fierce chairman of the caucus.
Right behind me.
Oh, Al Gentry.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. Our agenda today focuses on 5 broad areas. Public education, something we're referring to as household economics. You probably often hear affordable housing, similar to that. Healthy communities, workers' rights, and a public safety and justice reform area as well. There are 3 bills in each of these areas that we are going to mention today, 15 in total. We'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. And they really put families front and center. This legislation may be seen by some through a partisan lens, but we see these bills as common sense solutions that benefit us all, not just one party over another. We stand ready to work with our colleagues across the aisle and pass these vital measures. Some have already been filed, and the rest of them will be filed in the coming days. It is a work in process. We recognize this is not a budget session, so most of these bills either cost very little or nothing at all. The few with larger price tags are easily manageable when we consider the billions of dollars that are sitting there in our rainy day fund. We do not believe we should continue to wait another year when the money is available right now to invest in Kentuckians. These proposals would more than pay for themselves while not having an appreciable impact on current tax reform. Pardon me, I want to make sure we get this right here. Several of these bills are key priorities for our governor, who's been a great leader in many ways. I know you've heard that over and over and over. We won't go through that, but the jobs and economic development that he has led on is breaking all the Kentucky state records. We all know that, and we are going to work on bills that follow that lead. We're proud to work with him and his administration to turn his great ideas into words on the page. 2 of those are paying public school employees a 5% raise and making pre-K, universal pre-K, a reality for every single 4-year-old. State Representative Ann Donworth of Lexington, one of our Fab 5 freshmen. You're going to be impressed with our freshman class. I'm extremely impressed. I'm really excited to work with them. And a couple of them you'll see speaking today on some issues. Representative Donworth will talk about the 2 bills I just mentioned in education and another designed to improve mental health services in our schools. Representative Donworth.
Thank you, Representative Gentry. I'm very proud to highlight our caucus's legislative agenda for public education. About half of our state's budget goes towards helping students of all ages learn. And while we have a lot to be proud of, there are still a lot of challenges that remain. We saw proof of that just last week when the scores for what is called the nation's report card were released. Now, overall, they showed that the pandemic continues to have a major impact on our students' learning. Kentucky can be proud that we did better than many other states, but the national trend shows that our brightest students are roughly the same level as their peers were in 2019. The students who were in the middle have lost a little bit of ground, but the scariest part is that the students who were struggling before, the demographic groups that were struggling before, are seeing an even wider academic achievement gap. Those gaps are ones that no one wants to see, and it's time that we need to address them. To help curb this trend, I, as well as several of my colleagues, are sponsoring legislation to make pre-K available for all Kentucky 4-year-olds. More than half of them are not ready for kindergarten right now. That means that they are at a disadvantage from day one. And if you are behind on day one, chances are really strong that you will be behind every day thereafter. In addition to helping with school readiness, this will also provide relief for families who are struggling to find affordable or quality childcare opportunities. Pre-K would help our Commonwealth as well as each of our families who are struggling. I'm also proud to support legislation that would provide 5% raises for all public school employees. We are happy that many of these individuals were able to receive raises in recent years, but that additional money barely kept up with inflation. We still trail too many states, including the majority of our surrounding states, when it comes to teacher salaries, and higher pay remains the best way to keep our best and brightest in the classroom. The third proposal under public education would call for fully funding mental health services in our public schools, so that the goals that are in the law become a reality for our students. As a parent, I know that our children are under incredible stress from all areas. From social media to worrying about their very lives when they enter school. It has been several years since the General Assembly called for a greater number of health professionals to tackle these issues and others. And I believe that it is time for our students that they should not have to wait another year for the General Assembly to take action. Thank you, and I'd like to turn it back over to Representative Gentry.
Our next two categories are centered around household economics and affordable housing, as well as strengthening public safety and enacting needed justice reforms. When it comes to the former, voters made clear last election they are tired of their wallets being squeezed from inflation. They also want answers to longer-term problems that have dried up affordable housing in many communities, like mine in Louisville. Realizing the American dream of owning your own home is slipping away for younger generations. We must reverse that trend now. As for the latter that I spoke about, which is public safety and enacting justice reforms, we believe more can and should be done when it comes to helping first responders while making our criminal justice system fairer for those who either find themselves in it or are still dealing with its impact years after they have paid their debt to society. We have to find ways to create pathways to self-sustainability. And helping the most vulnerable workers be able to do that through work is what we need to be focused on. State Representative Joshua Watkins of Louisville, another one of our Fab Five freshmen, has a deep understanding of the need to address both of these, given his background in local government and his commitment to advocating for some of our most vulnerable citizens. Excuse me. Representative Watkins.
Thank you, Representative Gentry. Thank you all for being here this morning. I am a member of the Fab Five, and as a freshman, I'm just happy to be in the room. I know where the bathrooms are, uh, and it's great. But I'm proud to be here to support this platform and to be the one presenting on these two issues because they are both very important to me. I'll start with household economics and the work we're going to do there. For a lot of our families, as Representative Gentry said, finding a home, an affordable home, is their top concern. And as we learned this year in the task force, or last year in the task force, there are a lot of great ideas, both locally and nationally, that show a lot of promise. We're putting several comprehensive policies in a package together that we're calling the Homnibus. And I'll talk more about that. We'll cover more of that later this month. Another bill would protect Kentuckians facing shutoffs during extreme temperatures. And we experienced some of our coldest days this winter just a few weeks ago. And as a native Floridian, let me tell you, it was cold. It was very, very cold. And no one, absolutely no one, should worry about losing heat when that kind of weather happens. This holds true when it's very hot, when temperatures extend into the upper 90s and beyond. Our bill ensures that your power won't go off when extreme temperatures are present. One of my colleagues has proposed a constitutional amendment to give Kentucky voters the chance to protect food and medicine from potential sales taxes. We fear there will be eventually be a push to tax those two things, and we want to make sure that that never occurs. As for justice reforms, our juvenile justice system is in desperate need of a strategy to save our children. We must address some deeply troubling reports regarding the care of those under state supervision. Programs are in dire need of more resources, and we must do whatever it takes to protect those under state supervision from any harm or neglect. We must get this right now. Another bill in this plank would expand workers' comps coverage so that first responders struggling with PTSD in the aftermath of a difficult experience could get the mental health services they so desperately need without costing them personally. And a second bill would ban the box, which would remove criminal history questions from initial job applications. Those who have paid their debt to society, folks, should have a chance to rebuild their lives and participate in the economy. This bill would go a long way forward to making that a reality. Thank you, and I'd like to turn it back over to Representative Gentry.
Thank you, Joshua. Or I should say Representative Watkins. My apologies. Also, I want to note as well, like I'd said before, there are, or like Leader Stevenson had said before, there are many bills and many issues that are part of our platform and our agenda. And we are just mentioning a few this morning. But I would be remiss not to just spend 30 seconds mentioning one about our law enforcement officers. Because we cannot talk about public safety without showing our support as a party for our law enforcement officers. There are extreme workforce shortages in this area, as you know, not only within our law enforcement officers, but throughout our first responders. And we will continue to file bills that focus on retention and recruitment of this very, very important public service servant area. Our next speaker is State Representative Adriel Camuel, also of Lexington. She will talk about improving workers' rights. As many of you know, this has been one of my very important issues since I've been here, since 2017. But unfortunately, what I have seen in those 8 years under current majority leadership are attacks against worker unions, reduced wages and benefits, reduced unemployment benefits for laid off workers, reduced workforce safety standards, and believe it or not, even reduced health care benefits for our most vulnerable workers, workers like myself who suffered a permanent partial disability on the job. These are workers that continue, despite their disability, to step back into the workforce. It's past time that we stop diminishing the most important component of any business, which is the worker who produces and delivers goods and services for the people to consume. I am hopeful we will start seeing growing support to help our working men and women receive the wages and benefits they deserve and the safe environments they deserve to work in. Without further ado, she's not a Fab Five freshman, but she's very impressive also, and also very young, and her district is very proud to have her. Adriel, Representative Canuel.
Sorry, I got my notes under here. Found them. Right. Thank you all for being here today, and I really want to say thank you all for letting me speak on behalf of the caucus to share our platform for this year. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Adriel Camiel, and I represent House District 93 on the south side of Fayette County. And as many of you all may already know, public support nationally for unions is back at levels that we have not seen in at least 6 decades. The reason nearly 3 out of 4 Americans support unions in their cause is because they know that there is strength in numbers. And they know that people who actually do the work should be paid properly for that work. Getting that done is not always easy. And that's why others and I believe that right to work needs to be stopped. Workers should be able to participate in collective bargaining if they choose, as well as to share those costs equally. This is critical to help overall wages rise and so that we have more families in Kentucky flourishing. Our caucus also believes it is more than past time to raise our minimum wage. Kentucky's minimum wage has not risen, has not changed since 2009. We've lived through 2 major recessions, and we've also endured incredibly high inflation on top of that. About 30 states have raised their minimum wage in the past, and 10 of those states have set their minimum wage levels at twice Kentucky's. Working people deserve a livable wage, and this would move us one step closer to achieving that goal. In 2018, Governing Magazine reported that more than 50,000 Kentuckians were earning minimum wage. That was 4.6% of the entire hourly workforce population at that time, which was the highest percentage of all 50 states. There's little reason to believe that our ranking has changed much since then. The third part of this plank would also codify Governor Beshear's recent executive order granting paid parental leave for state employees who have a new child in their family or have to provide care for a loved one. Many large companies already do this, as do Fayette County Public Schools, who I work for. Our bill would ensure that future governors could not remove this benefit from state employees. Thank you for letting me speak, and what I'd like to do is actually turn things back over to Chair Gentry. So thank you all.
Okay, I'm going to introduce you to another Fab Five freshman, Representative Adam Moore of Lexington as well. He will highlight bills that will make our communities healthier. Safe and healthy communities are what we're really striving to achieve. Representative Moore.
Thanks to our caucus chair, Representative Gentry. Thank you all for being here today. It is a real privilege to speak about the importance of healthy communities, particularly for myself, who knows firsthand the value of having adequate health care. I'll never forget the first time that I held Remy in my arms. And not just because it was my son, but because at that moment I was holding him because the delivery doctor had ordered all doctors and nurses on the floor into the room immediately. And I stood 5 feet away from my wife's bed, unable to see her through the crowd, asking myself the question, am I going to have to raise this child alone? In those moments when time stops, nothing else matters. Not where you live, not how much money you make, not who you vote for. All that matters is that the person that you love gets the care that they need. That's adequate health care. And it's the reason I have my family and Remy has his mom today. Healthy communities start with ensuring that families like mine get the care that they need. And while the omnibus bill we passed last year was a great step forward, there is more to be done. Kentucky has among the highest maternal and infant mortality rates in the nation. We cannot accept that. We need to include midwives in Medicaid, expand postpartum care, and ensure that every new parent has access to treatment for postpartum depression. No one should have to fight for the care that keeps them and their baby healthy. We also need to have common sense when it comes to the cost of life-saving medicine. Kentuckians shouldn't have to choose between putting food on the table and getting treatment they need just to survive. Just as we capped insulin prices, we must do the same thing for EpiPens and other essential medications. No one should be priced out of the medicine they need just to live. But affordability is not the only barrier to care. Kentucky has the most restrictive medicinal marijuana program in the country, leaving too many people, veterans like myself, cancer patients, those working through chronic pain, without necessary options. We need to expand the list of qualifying conditions so that more Kentuckians have the access to the care that they need. These are not partisan issues. They're about people. They're about doing what is right. And I believe a healthier Kentucky is within reach, and it's up to us to make it happen. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Chairman Gentry.
At this stage, I would like to wrap it up by introducing a very, very special person, very smart person. I'm very proud to have her as my colleague in leadership, and she is the minority whip, also from the Lexington area, Representative Lindsey Burke.
Thank you, Representative Gentry, and thank you to every member of our caucus for working on and supporting these essential and vital bills. I want to make sure that everyone understands this is not an exhaustive list of the policies we'll put forward during this session or in coming sessions. It's not everything that we support. There are many other bills that could have been part of this platform. One, for example, is about legislative transparency, another about access to reproductive health care. The thing is, we needed to make sure you understand that we stand for Kentuckians, and we're here to do that today, to express exactly our vision for moving Kentucky forward. We understand that there's limited time when it comes to passing new laws, but the General Assembly has averaged 200 new laws each year since 2021. If the number of bills were determined by our membership in the House, then that means 40 of the bills that passed would be Democratic sponsored bills. That has not been the way it's been going, but we believe that it's the way it can and should be. If we could get 15 bills, these 15 bills, to the governor's desk, then not only would we as a caucus be thrilled, but Kentucky would move forward and we would all be better for it. This concludes our press conference today. We'll be glad to answer any and all questions you have. Thank you so much.
If you all had like a House Bill 1, I know you may not choose, but which one of these would you choose?
Tough call.
I mean, I think that's Okay, the people have voted. That's going to be our housing proposal, the homeless bill that's coming to another press conference near you. That is a major and comprehensive policy package that involves approximately 15 different policies addressed at all the causes of housing insecurity, instability, and especially the lack of supply that exists around the state. So we know that no single housing policy is going to solve our crisis and the lack of housing. So we're putting forward a comprehensive bill that will address the many issues in our housing supply.
So many of the issues, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
So many of the issues that you've brought up today, for example, affordable housing, when you talk about criminal justice, these are things that I think both caucuses agree on are an issue in our state, but it seems like the big disagreement is what to do about it and how much to spend on it. You guys mentioned at the start that, you don't think that these measures would get in the way of future tax reform. Can you expand on that? Are you supporting now like continuing to cut income tax? Do you think that that would make sense given your platform and the additional spending that you guys want to accomplish this year and in coming years? You can expand on that a little bit.
We're not talking about future tax cuts. We're talking about the one that the House has just engaged in. Now, our caucus had differing opinions on whether or not that was the right move. And I think even now, members who were in favor as a result of the changes in the economic climate may have different opinions today than how they voted. But what we're looking at is a record rainy day surplus. We're looking at a giant pot of billions of dollars that we can either sit on and hold tight for some future date, or we can start strategically spending now to benefit the people of Kentucky. And as federal funding is being pulled away from the state, we're not in a position to continue to sit on surplus capital. We need to make strategic, informed decisions about how to use those dollars today so that Kentuckians don't suffer.
In regards to veterans who have become broken and are facing all of the challenges, housing, low economics, what proposals?
Well, I think our entire platform speaks to that. Our proposals cover the gamut, serving families from every background and every economic stratus. We know that not one proposal will work for every family, and that's why we've chosen this entire platform to speak to the needs of Kentuckians from across the board.
You talk about the ratio of Democrat-led bills versus Republican-led bills making it to the governor's desk, and sometimes even the challenge of even getting some of these bills heard in committee. Is there anything about the tactics y'all are going to be taking this year that may differ from previous sessions in order to make some progress?
Well, today is step one. Being able to articulate a clear and concise and convincing vision for Kentucky is something that we have struggled to do over the last few years. So we hope that by advancing these ideas, bringing them to the forefront so the public is engaged, they understand our vision, then we can work with our stakeholders, our community members, and our colleagues across the aisle to get these things moving. Because I think when it comes to these kinds of common sense proposals, we're going to find a lot more agreement than disagreement.
Are there any big standouts that you see heavy support from the other side?
Well, I know that housing is on everyone's mind. And just last night, I was listening to Kentucky Tonight and heard from Republican members several things that were in our bill would have been appealing to them. So we're going to start having those strategic conversations with people who are identifying themselves as being interested so that we can build those coalitions to get these things across the finish line.
Speaking on the GOP nature for a second, I know that the governor has asked for, I think, 10 or 11% raises across the board for teachers. This is 5%. Seems to be a little bit more in the wheelhouse, but have you had any conversations with Republicans on whether that is doable or something they're interested in?
Whether or not it's doable and whether or not they're interested in it, those are different answers. It is absolutely achievable easily within our current budget constraints. The question of whether or not the Republicans will prioritize taking care of public school workers, that's on them.
Can you walk me through any conversations you might have had with them? Like, is there any sort of political appetite for it on their side based on conversations you've had?
I don't think we should comment on that.
If homelessness is criminalized in Kentucky, which I'm pretty sure it is in Louisville, correct? How are you guys pledging to help homeless people or people experiencing homeless without homeless?
That's a really important question. And as someone whose background is a social worker who worked with people experiencing homelessness, it's dear to my heart. So we have the Homelessness Bill, which is coming, and we'll talk more about that, that addresses issues relating specifically to the people who are unhoused. So there are proposals in there that will make being becoming housed easier. Then we also have to grapple with the effects of House Bill 5 from last session and whether or not that bill, as it's currently written, can be enforced in a way that doesn't punish people for being homeless, or whether that bill needs to be corrected. So we're going to take a multi-pronged approach to this because no Kentuckian shouldn't have a place to lay their head.
So you're going to try to amend the bill?
We need to have discussions to figure out the best way to ensure that people aren't punished for being homeless.
In regards to expanding the medical cannabis program, I know Governor Bashir has been helping spearhead that. Have you had conversations with the governor, and does he support expanding it, or is that something you're going to work with him on?
I'd like to defer this to Representative Gentry, who is spearheading this particular element.
Thank you for the question. First of all, that bill is in process right now. It has not been filed. What we're really trying to do more than anything, as Representative Moore said, we passed the most stringent medical cannabis program in the United States. And what we are trying to do is open it up a little bit more to put us more in line with most of the other states' programs. And really, on the qualifying condition standpoint, it's looking at Governor Bashir's original executive order that kind of pushed us into passing this bill. There are certain conditions that were in there that aren't necessarily covered in what we passed in legislation. So that is a top priority to try to expand to get those coverages. And there's a couple other things that may come in too. But what ends up being in the final bill will depend on further conversations with advocacy groups, with the other side, with the governor's staff to see, sometimes you get what you can get and then continue to work on in future sessions. So we'll see what happens with whatever product, gets passed. Now there's going to be some concerns. We don't want to do too much right away either because we just established the new program. So we have to keep that in mind as well. But there are many of us, including myself, that want to push toward further expansion and maybe beyond what we do this session.
Representative Gentry, I had a couple for you, if you don't
Yes.
mind. First, you mentioned a bill for increased retention and recruitment for law enforcement, specifically in Louisville's case. What will that entail, and how will you get that through?
Well, we got a bill out there right now that we've been filed the last couple of years, and we have a freshman, Mr. Representative Matt Lehman, that's here. I believe is that House Bill 76. 76, which we were going to talk about that today, but we didn't want to dive into the weeds of defined benefit plans and the whole pension thing because we didn't want you to lose sight of our overall vision. But it talks about tier 3 benefits being equated more to tier 2 level to address, because what I've been hearing personally from representatives of FOP and of our firefighters, that their struggles seem to happen after we made those changes with tier 3. It's just difficult to recruit and retain the type of public servants we want in those areas.
My second question has to do with car crushing legislation. We call it different things. I know there's been some concerns on both sides of due process. I understand there will be legislation filed with regards to that in Louisville this week. Do you have any thoughts on that specifically? Do you support it?
Well, generally it's this. On the specifics, I'll leave it to the people that are experts in those areas, that work in those areas, which I do not. But we've got to put a stop to racing. It's just dangerous to normal citizens. It's common sense, guys. I mean, we can't allow this to happen. Now, how far we go to try to stop that and what we come up with that works the best, we'll have to work our way through that and see how that goes. But we've got to put a stop to this.
Would you support Representative Nemus's proposal to crush cars?
I have not seen or read that bill yet, so can't really comment on that.
Talk about issues within the state's juvenile justice system, the foster care system. Did you have any reaction to Auditor Ball's report last week, first of all, and what kind of common ground do you and Republicans have on the issue that maybe you could get done this year?
Anybody in justice reform that want to comment on this?
Well, I think it would hurt our hearts to acknowledge what's going on both in juvenile justice and in the foster care system. There are plenty of ways to improve both of those systems, and our children not only deserve it, but they require it. So we are committed to working across the aisle to ensure that children are not put in more damaging situations than the ones they come from, and that'll be a top priority for us as we go through the session.
Can you give any details on the juvenile justice bill that you all proposed that was part of the presentation? Does it include calls for more funding, like we saw last session that didn't end up coming through, other more administrative changes?
The one that is the plank of our platform has to do with a task force for investigating the most recent incidents with the young men whose arms were broken and didn't receive proper treatment within a reasonable amount of time. We also have a Juvenile Justice Bill of Rights that we'll be pushing forward to ensure that when someone is being deprived of their essential freedoms, they are not being treated in ways that harm them further. So we have several bills in the juvenile justice space, but the one that was in the platform specifically has to do with that horrific incident.
Representative Mark, I believe you alluded to this, but after the election, one of the things the governor said is that he believes that Democrats are not doing a good job getting their message to the people. So I know you guys put forth this vision, but to simply tell Kentuckians, like, what exactly are you guys fighting for in this session?
Well, I think that comes down to our five silos. We're fighting for public education. We're fighting for household economics, so you don't have to struggle to get by. We want our communities to be healthy. We want workers to have rights and success at work. And we want public safety and justice reform.
Have any of you specifically talked with your Republican colleagues to see which of these have the best chance of passing? Not necessarily House Bill 1, but specific conversations with specific people to get folks on board with you?
Yes, I'd say all of these bills are being individually vetted by members of the caucus. They're taking them to people with whom we have relationships, and also people that we're identifying who have just recently expressed interest in certain policies that are contained here, and will not have any success without cooperation and collaboration with our Republican counterparts.
When you say caucus, you mean the Republican caucus. You guys have met with Republicans.
Yeah, we are not meeting as caucus and caucus. We are meeting as individuals representing our respective caucuses.
Are all of these being filed today?
No, they're not. Some of them are still receiving reviews and are engaged in hot debates to get the proposals just right. Some of them are already filed. Some more will be filed today. And they should all be filed within the next couple weeks.
Do you have any concerns, given this is a 30-day session, obviously shorter than last year, that's going to be more difficult to get these measures passed?
It's always hard to get a bill passed. It's especially hard as a member of a super minority. But the thing is, we know that the strategy to win is by putting good ideas forward, building the coalitions to get them across the finish line. So whether or not they pass this session or next, we're here to do the work to get the job done for Kentuckians.